and then I'll put it in the chat.
All right, folks, this one's supposed to work. Cross your fingers. Redirecting to YouTube.
And then I'll put it in the chat.
Folks, yeah, it's because it was playing.
Oh.
I was playing it. I wonder if it was running before and we just weren't playing it.
Leo or Don, I think it's working. I think it's working because I just got a notification that you were going live.
Okay, good.
You know, from YouTube instead of from you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Good. Well, we're live, folks.
Good deal.
We are live. All right. So here's what we're going to do. All right, everybody. Thanks for bearing with us. Really appreciate everybody's patience, and we hope you're on with us. And welcome to Inventor Friday Live.
Yep.
The live stream on YouTube and all our inner circle folks on Zoom. Thanks so much for being here. We're really glad that you're here. We've got quite a lot of interesting things to talk about tonight. We've got, by the way, April is National Inventors Month. For those of you that are confused, National Inventors Day was February the 11th. Can Scotland become the richest country on earth due to innovation? And would you put nanoparticles in your mouth to brush your teeth? So we're going to be talking about things like that and more tonight. But first, I want to introduce all of our guests. We have a special guest tonight, and we're going to test my memory on the channels. But first off, we have friend of the Inventors Network, longtime friend, patent attorney, Jim Francis. Jim, tell us about who you are, what you do, what you're up to.
He just told you most of it, but I'm a patent attorney in Lexington, Kentucky. I spent almost 20 years in research and development, developing products, taking them to market, and then killing products. But I just love working with inventors, love working with the small inventors, especially because the passion they have, and do everything I can to move their dreams along. I think it's the backbone of the country.
Absolutely. Cool. And we've seen you do that quite a bit over the years. Oh, and also with us, of course, tonight is Leo York.
Hey, how are you all?
Everybody that doesn't know, Leo, tell everybody who you are, what you do, what you're up to.
I'm a copywriter in Lexington, and I like to help inventors. And right now I'm copying and pasting the live stream so people can tune in.
All right, we appreciate that because as most of you all know, if you're not on another planet, I'm Don Skaggs, president of the Inventors Network. I also have Empowered Inventing TV, which is on this YouTube channel. And this is Inventor Friday Live. So, and I am unfortunately running the cameras tonight again. We do not have our camera. We're working on that. We had a really good conversation today about maybe getting an intern in here from a community technical school. And so the future is bright for the Inventor live stream. We're going to be growing and adding some new stuff on, and it's really going to be interesting going forward with all this. But anyway, well, tonight we're going to be talking about all this kind of a lot of different interesting things. Like I said, we are in the and I should mention in the Active Therapy Systems studio, or the Total Health Work studio, I guess I should say. They kind of have two brands, and actually let me give them a little bit of a plug here. Should have had this prepped up already, but we can do that.
There we go.
So anyway, I want to share my screen real fast. If you are ever interested in helping your brain and body to be more healthy and active. That is one of our own came up with this. Bennett Gatto, one of our own, and we share a building here with him. And but he has a website called TotalHealthWorks.com. And there's all kinds of programs, everything from to help people with neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and MS, to healthy aging, memory and cognition. If you just want to be healthier, then they've got a program for you. So so if you want to check that out, they're a sponsor of our what we're doing here tonight, and our really great just really great folks over there. So anyway, we're proud to be part of them, and proud that they're one of our own. So anyway, I didn't want to be amiss in pointing that out. Then also we have some upcoming meetings next month we're going to talk to you about in a little bit. But first, we're going to kind of divert off and talk a little bit about some inventions in history. And this first one that I have here, let's see, I'm going to pull it up. And let's see, we'll go out of this and over here to this. So today, now April 6th, 1869. So this is what happened in April. Actually, there was a gentleman named inventor Isaac Hodgson invented the roller skate in 1869. Now, actually, roller skates were around kind of before then, but his, and this is a trying to get a good representation of. Here we go. I can get it to move. Let's zoom out and then maybe move it.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah.
There we go. Now we can get it to move. So these are the first roller skates that had two sets of wheels. If you can kind of see it in this drawing. This is actually the original drawing from the patent on April 6, 1869. And before that, and this is kind of the real interesting thing. So his innovation in 1869 was that he had two parallel sets of wheels. So would you believe that rollerblades came first? Did you know that, Jim?
I would never have imagined that.
Yeah. Seems so counterintuitive.
So and this is partly kind of my guess, is that the rollerblade was modeled after the ice skate. So before everything else, they had ice skates, and then they had rollerblade, or then they put wheels on it, and they fashioned it after that, and then they waited until 1869 before they came up with something that had those two sets of parallel wheels, which I just thought was just wild.
It's a little surprising that ice skates came first, because to me, a wheel seems more intuitive than a blade that you stand on. It's so peculiar.
Yeah, you wonder. You think maybe that might have been due to the just that there were more flat, hard surfaces that were frozen ponds
Makes
back
sense.
then.
Yeah.
Then
I see that.
yeah,
Weird though.
yeah.
Weird how the chronology of things works.
Yeah, but yeah, that's just wild.
Speaking of invention and chronology, this is kind of random, but it's just a weird fact that Cleopatra was born closer to the construction of the first Pizza Hut than the construction of the first pyramid. Isn't that bizarre? So, yeah.
When you put it in perspective like that, it just kind of bends your mind a little bit. Wow. So I wonder when they did invent the ice skate. I didn't look that up. That would be interesting to know. Now the wheels here in this one were made from boxwood and worked on rubber springs, and they were the first skates to maneuver in a smooth curve. So I guess rollerblades, or at least the ones they had back then, did not do that. Maneuver a smooth curve.
Wow. I had to look it up.
Yep.
First ice skates were made with horse bones 5,000 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that is bananas.
So 5,000 years ago, they're like, hey, let's go ice skating.
In Finland.
In
Yep.
Finland. Well, Finland. There
It
you
makes
go.
sense.
That explains everything.
Not a lot of parking lots back then, so it makes sense.
No, right, exactly. So yeah, actually, here's a little thing on the history of roller skates. There was something in the 1700s called skeelers. Let's see. Unknown Dutchman decided to go ice skating in the summer. Ice skating was widespread in the Netherlands.
Oh, that's kind of how
He
it came about.
accomplished dry land skating by nailing wooden spools to strips of wood and attaching them to his shoes.
Wow.
That is bizarre. Let's see. And then there was another inventor in 1760, Joseph Merlin, attended a masquerade party wearing one of his new inventions, metal wheeled boots, and desiring to make a grand entrance, the pizzazz rolling in while playing the violin.
Wow.
Let's see, lining his huge ballroom, expensive wall-length mirror. Stood no chance, and Merlin crashed solidly into the mirrored wall as his roller skates crashed into
Wow.
society. Wow,
Yeah.
now that is wild. See, 1818, there was a roller ballet.
You can see that. That's
yeah,
fun,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, ballet for ice skating because it was impossible for that time to produce ice on stage.
Wow.
So they used, they were like, okay, well, we have this problem, let's solve it and put wheels on the thing. So, and then 1819, first patent for a roller skate. Again, made of wood, attached to the bottom of a boot, fitted with 4 rollers made of copper, wood, ivory, arranged in a straight line. So this was the
No,
first
yeah, it sounds
the
more
roller blade.
right. Yeah, interesting.
So 1823, they did the Rolito, 5 wheels in a single roll. So
That's pushing it. Yeah.
was unable to follow a curved path like the inline skates of today. So that was when the guy in 1863, that was his big thing. Oh, let me do 2 parallel. It's funny, you don't think of 1700s, 1800s
No.
of tackling these kinds of problems. Oh, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
But they did it. And yeah, and here's another one, 1819, made of wood, attached to the bottom of the boot, fitted 4 rollers made of copper,
Right.
wood, ivory, arranged in
Makes sense.
straight line.
Trippy.
Yeah, interesting. They had barmaids on wheels.
Yeah, I saw that. And I thought
Oh.
that sounds more like 1940.
That's what I was going to say, or fit like
Yeah.
the skating
Yeah. Dynamic
waitresses
type stuff.
on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Weird.
wonder if that's where they got it.
I would imagine so.
Wow.
Very odd.
Beer tavern near Berlin, barmaids on roller skates served thirsty patrons.
Yeah. So instead of doo-wop, it's you know, the accordion and all that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, weird.
So yeah, that is just wild. So anyway, that's just when you think of April and inventing history, roller skates was actually a thing back in the 1800s. So, all right, well, let's see what's next. Well, in April 14th, 1964, let's go up 100 years here. Ventriloquist Paul Winchell, and I don't know if anybody remembers who that is. He kind of rings a bell from my childhood, but he invented this. Well, let me back up first. Paul Winchell was a very, very famous ventriloquist, and he was on TV a lot, and he had, I forget the name of his act or whatever it was called, but it was very popular back in that day.
Mitchell's creepy puppet hour.
Right. We'll show you a picture here. Well, here, let me find a good picture. And that's not it, but that's actually the invention he did. Let me see. So this was Paul Winchell, and this was the puppet he had. I don't have anything on Paul Winchell, but Paul Winchell came up with this thing called Oswald McGum. So it was a hat that you wore. Let's see, this was the actual picture of the product, I guess the box that came in. And so you put this hat or mask thing on, and it was like an upside down thing. And then I guess you reflect it upside down in this mirror. Oh, it came with a mirror too. Wow. And then, so you looked at it upside down, or sometimes I guess they would film things upside down, and that's where this came from. I guess this is it when somebody has it on. So that's actually the bottom of their face. And they drew eyes. And so then they turn the camera upside down, and you get this stuff of nightmares, which is what I would think of this thing. And it was actually a video on it. Was this the video? Oh, there's the video. We'll play this. It's just a minute.
One of the characters we had on the program was Oswald. His real name was Oswald Mask. And Oswald was a character created, which had the body of a man upside down, and it would come over the nose. And then this part of the face from here on painted some eyes here, and then the mouth with the regular mouth. And then we had to flip the camera upside down, and then it would look like a puppet, only a real live one. And we had so much fun, but it was a little bit frightening sometimes for some reason.
For some reason.
Frightened about Oswald. But we always told jokes and riddles. So here's what Oswald was like.
Oswald here, Oswald the Gum. And say, do you hear about the elephant that swallowed his food? Well, he hasn't stirred since. Oswald here, and am I ever happy? I just got a part-time job at the lumber company. I am the guy that spanks all of the naughty pies.
Terrifying.
That is terrifying. Gosh. Oh, so yeah,
I know why
I
my
mean,
parents turned out the way they did.
right. That would scare me as a child. I think I'd have nightmares over that thing. But yeah, though there he is, I guess advertising it.
I mean, it's clever. I'll say that.
Yeah.
The soul patch hasn't aged well for. Actually, this was post World War II, so yeah, not the best facial hair for a.
No, somehow that just doesn't seem to want to quite do it right. So yeah, that's super bizarre. Oh goodness. All right, well let's move on from that, because that's just creepy. So the there was one other thing on this. So Leo was talking about this earlier. So apparently there's a band in the 80s called Right Said Fred.
Oh, yeah.
And they're based on, I guess, these things
Yeah.
that should kind of remind you of that.
Yeah. Stop motion. That's immediately what I thought.
Okay, well,
Trippy stuff.
that is trippy stuff. Not quite the stuff of nightmares, but
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So next up, I think last but not almost next to last, penultimate thing. So on April the 11th, so this was this week, in 1976, Steve Wozniak releases the Apple I computer. And the really cool thing about this, I think, is this advertisement. Let me blow it up here so you can see it better. Here, can everybody see that? I hope so.
Yeah.
So anyway, this was the actual way they were selling it. So Apple introduces the first low-cost microcomputer system. And folks, this is it. It's basically a Raspberry Pi,
Yeah.
or maybe a little less than that. So that's what
housing.
they were selling. Yeah, no housing, no box, no monitor, no keyboard. And I think there was even a scene when we did Inventor Night at the Movies. We did the one on Steve Jobs, where there was a scene where they go into this store and they're the guy saying, "I'm not going to sell these. This is just a part." And Steve Jobs kind of wooed him and was saying like, oh, he says, you don't get it. You're going to sell all of these extra parts and all these extra things in your computer store, and you'll sell keyboards. And he actually sold them like that.
You seen that film, Jim? By any chance?
No, I
It's
don't.
definitely a good.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a good one. Well, I didn't mean to stop my share. Sorry, guys. We'll fix that right up here. So, there we go. So anyway, yeah, I just thought it was interesting, because they tell a little bit about it here. Let's see, is this where's the history on this? Here it is. So, July 1976, went on sale for $666.66 because Wozniak liked repeating digits. Sounds like somebody that would sell a computer. And plus it was 1/3 markup of the $500 wholesale price. And then Jobs managed to get it in inventory. I think he was more of the sales guy for the nation's first 4 storefront microcomputer retailers. So that's how they got their start. And I think there's some other really cool pictures with this too. Oh yeah, there's a picture of it, real life. So nailed to a piece of plywood, looks like. And there it is in a briefcase. This is from the Sydney Powerhouse Museum. There was also an audio cassette tape player inside. How apropos.
Would that be the first laptop? Kind of look.
Yeah, there you go. There's the first laptop. Oh God. So complete with a sound card, right? 1976 version of sound cards. So, and that's it a little closer up. Wow, I can't imagine. That is just wild. And then this one's from the Living Computers Museum, the Apple one, working and available for visitors to use. I'd love to go see that. That just looks really cool. So anyway, that's that. And I think we got one more thing here. And this was actually a well, let me ask this. Let me throw this question out, guys. What do you think? What's your earliest memory of the computer? I know what mine is. Mine is, so we had to have brochures made, and we couldn't really. We were wanting to make them up on a computer because and there were these little Apple. The first Macs, I think, the very first Macintosh computers, and they had them for rent in a print shop in Louisville, Kentucky. And I went in there and we started, and that's where I learned. That's actually where I learned how to use a computer. And then I would later, when we didn't have money to buy because they were really expensive. And this was probably a few years later. This was probably early 90s. I'd actually sneak in to the University of Kentucky computer lab, and it was this big lab, and it was just all of these computers in line. And I would get me a backpack and look like a student and walk in there like I belonged. And I don't guess I'd get in trouble this many years later. And I'd use their computers, and that's how we made our first catalog. So and I only got caught once. Somebody told me, they said, just tell them you're doing something for Professor Smith or Professor Jones, and they'll just, and that was the excuse I used. I said, yeah, I'm doing this for Professor Jones. And they just kind of let me through. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Only got kicked out once. So.
What about you, Jim?
Oh, I'm gonna scare you with this one. I can remember going with my dad, who was an electrical engineer, to the engineering building by the Catlettsburg refinery. And the little punch cards you would have to put into the computer, and those punch cards were kind of like the commands and the programming. And he would sit there and put little punch cards in.
Oh, wow.
And I would sit there and wad him up, and he'd go, no, don't do that. That was pretty interesting.
Wow.
I didn't realize the significance of what I was looking at till years later.
Yeah.
But
Goodness. Punch cards. Yeah, that's And think of how much computing power that must have been back then compared to,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like I heard one time if you took all the computing power of the onboard computers of the moon, Apollo 13 or whatever, that it was actually the equivalent of one of those singing greeting cards today. Oh, goodness. How about you, Leo?
I remember in school, they encouraged us to learn computers, but funny enough, my earliest memory of computers is just playing Oregon Trail, because we didn't really learn much. It was more just play, which in
Having
retrospect
fun.
was probably for the best.
Yeah, well,
It made
play,
us
learn
want
while
to
you play.
use computers.
I
So
remember Oregon Trail.
yeah, it was fun.
That was a fun little.
Yeah, there's actually been new iterations of it because it's kind of got the nostalgia now.
Yeah.
So there's fancier and weirder spin-offs these days.
It's the weirdest thing when video games first came out, and it was kind of the Pac-Man era and all that. I really didn't take the games. There might have been one or two, but I wasn't a big game player for some reason. I liked playing games where the points were real. But yeah, I think there was one though. There was something. It was like this guy was climbing a building. Do you
Sounds like
remember that
Donkey
one?
Kong to me. Oh,
No,
wait a minute.
no.
I think I know. Was that like a spelling thing where you type the right words and he gets a little higher?
No,
No,
it
'cause it
was
was something
he was
where-
he was like reaching up, and then he'd reach up and grab it, and he'd pull himself up and he'd reach up, grab the next window or whatever. And every once in a while it'd have this little sound bite that'd go out and say, "Go for it."
No,
And you'd
I
like
don't have a
move this
clue.
way or that way.
Interesting.
I'll have to look that up, because
Huh.
that was wild.
Huh.
I remember going to the local Radio Shack because they always had those computers sitting out,
Yeah.
and they always had games loaded on them.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was a way to sell
Oh yeah. I didn't think about that. That's a cool marketing tool. It's come in, play our games. Hey, you want to take us home and buy it? Would you like to buy one? Get them addicted first, and then oh wow. All right, well, let's see. Let's move on to the next item. This is a kind of a prophetic headline from let me find it here. So this is a headline. Actually found this is an old newspaper clip.
Dummy.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Hang on, guys.
I do not have that capacity.
We are trying to fix this now.
Somebody broke it.
Yep.
Somebody broke something. All right, I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to start.
There we go.
Okay. I don't know what happened, but for some reason the recording stopped. So, all right, I'm going to try to share a screen again without us, without stopping the recording. Here we go. All right, I think that worked.
Good deal.
So anyway, this is an article from 1953, and it's from Mark R. Sullivan, San Francisco president and director of the Pacific Telephone and Telegraph Company. It's got to be old if they're saying telephone and telegraph. He said, from just what form the future telephone will take us is, of course, pure speculation. He says, in its final development, the telephone will be carried about by the individual, perhaps as we carry a watch today. It probably will require no dial or equivalent, and I think the users will be able to see each other if they want as they talk. Who knows, but what it may actually translate from one language to another.
Insane.
So apparently time traveler Mark Sullivan wrote this back in 1953, which I don't know. That's just wild.
Yeah. I mean,
That's a spot on. It's scary.
Yeah, I know,
it's a
right?
little
Right.
too accurate. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Gosh. Wow.
It reminds me of this old weird picture. I have no idea how true it was, but it's of this guy, and he's traveled to somewhere, and he says, "I'm trying to see the world before 2020 and the pandemic hits."
Oh, really?
Whoa.
Well, that's scary.
Yeah.
What did you know and when did you know it, right?
Looking for that guy.
Yeah. Let's see what else he's got to say. Maybe he'll have next week's lottery numbers. That's kind of the inside joke when we do our workshops is because in our workshops we go around the room and everybody gets to talk about their invention and get input group. So the unwritten rule is that if you come into the workshop and you claim to have invented time travel, you have one requirement, and that is to take us all to tomorrow so we can all see tomorrow's lottery numbers and then bring us back. So that's if you say you've invented time travel, that is your that's what you have to do to prove it. So anyway, all right, let's see. Let's move on to
This whole time.
a little bit of news. This is kind of local news for us. We're excited and proud. We actually partnered this past season with Boone, Kentucky. And we have been coaching, Leo and I have been coaching high school teams, entrepreneur people, student teams that had ideas for products or businesses. And it culminated in this big pitch showcase at Eastern Kentucky University this past Tuesday. And these are all the teams, a lot of the winning teams, and you see the crowd there and the judges, and it was great. It was great.
It really was. Some of these kids have Shark Tank ready ideas. It was really something.
They did. They really did. I mean, it was like, okay, I can see that. And yeah, we even had some of our own folks that kind of helped out with that. And
thanks much, Larry.
Big thanks to Larry Manson for helping out the team. And it was way cool. It was just really, really something. I wished I'd been doing something like that when I was 16 years old.
Great thing about young inventors is they don't know they can't do it.
That's it.
That's it in a nutshell.
Exactly.
And they forge ahead, not knowing what's going to happen.
Yep.
Where you and I look at it and go, that's gonna be a waste of time. I'm going to try something different.
Right. Exactly.
That's you hit the nail on the head there.
Yep. Absolutely.
Be nice if they didn't lose that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of it. They're like, they get it beat down. Like, I don't know at what point, but it's like they think, oh, okay, I gotta take this job and do that. We were talking about this before the show. We were talking about, a lot of kids think, well, what if I'll just go get a job somewhere. I'll just graduate from and they ought to be teaching them stuff like this. This is why we were so excited to be part of this.
Yeah.
We were showing them that, hey, and you can actually, you don't have to go get a job somewhere. You can actually start a business, create your own legacy, and it's just amazing. I remember even telling some of the kids, I said, you're going to look back at right now and say, I did this in high school. So this other thing I'm doing, this is nothing, because I can tackle this because I started this stuff in high school. I started doing this stuff. So anyway, all right, well, let's see. What else do we have going on? There's a interesting story this week from, you got it? From about, of all people, Tupperware. Tupperware, beloved household stock, could be dangerously close to going out of business. So it says, this famous purveyor of plastic, the future is not so fantastic. The company's price share was already down 69%.
Ooh.
And on a year-to-date basis, and 93 year-to-year basis. So that's kind of scary. Yeah. So
good time to buy if you think they can turn around.
right. Hey, if they're gonna pull it out, that would be something. Uh-oh. You got an echo.
There, let's.
Is that you? Is that you? Nope.
Somebody else.
Oh, somebody's.
Yeah.
Got to mute, guys.
There we go.
Yep. There we go. All right. Now we got it fixed. So, That was an interesting reason someone was giving down through here. Let's see if I can find it. Someone was saying they thought it had something to do with management.
Yeah, it's the
Tupperware.
bottom thing in a candid statement.
Oh, there it is. Fernandez also pointed his finger at the company management for its trouble. He says the global macro environment continues to be challenging, but we are not executing internally. Boy, that's a politically correct way to put it. We're not executing internally at a level or consistency that we believe we should be. You know, and it's funny. I'll see this a lot with companies, and you know, it doesn't matter if the you know, how big they are. And I thought I'd heard that Tupperware was doing sort of well during the pandemic because everybody was kind of being a homebody, and you know, the sales had gone up. And I wonder if they just kind of ran their headlights. I wonder if they thought, oh, okay, we're back. Everything's going to be great now, and it's never going to change.
I think the problem is, a lot of people just didn't return to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They didn't.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I for one hate leftovers. I will say that. So.
Oh. Well.
That's interesting to think about, though. You know, I hadn't considered it from that angle. You know, video killed the radio star. HelloFresh killed Tupperware. You know, because you're making food for Wednesday and only Wednesday.
Or DoorDash killed Tupperware.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, so you combine those two things,
double whammy.
and now it's like, yeah, I can see that. And I wonder if they had a lot of competition now. I mean, you know, you walk into Walmart and there's Sterilite, and there's a lot of generic containers out there. So I just, I wonder if that's a factor at all. But I think you guys are right, though. I think DoorDash, the combination of DoorDash and HelloFresh.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I want to say Hello Kitty every time. No correlation between the two, I don't think. But yeah, that's that could very well be what went wrong with those guys.
Also, I think it's also a good example of what happens when you're too successful. Because you turn your product into a commodity.
You know, that's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, they kind of did, didn't they? They were, I mean, think about how they started out. They started out as like
almost MLM-ish.
Yeah, really. It's the
Tupperware parties.
The Tupperware parties of the what was that, 1960s?
There's even a show on Netflix that kind of mocks that. F is for Family. It's an animated series.
Really?
And yeah, it's it kind of pokes fun at that whole era, and you know, yeah.
I've not seen.
Can't elaborate further because it's very not kid.
Oh, okay. It's not family friendly. But yeah.
It's the title. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, but yeah, I could see that. I mean, that used to be started out MLM, and then they, you know, they kind of commoditized themselves. I saw this in the pathology industry. So that when we first started out, or before that, because I kind of grew up in that industry, but when we first started out, there was this thing called a 5-gallon cubitainer of 10% buffered formalin, which is probably the most boring thing you'll hear all night. But it was this thing. It was a thing that they had to buy for using in the pathology lab, and they when we first started, those things, 5-gallon cubes, what we used to call them, went for about $70 a cube. By the time we left the business, they had commoditized that one product. There was a lot of other specialty products, and that's kind of was our bread and butter. But that particular product was a race to the bottom. I had a ringside seat to that. So it was a race to the bottom of everybody trying to commoditize that. Everybody was undercutting everybody else. And by the time I left, those things were going, those same 5-gallon containers were going for $17.
Wow.
each. So yeah, from 70 to 17. So that's just always something I
Look,
think of.
That's
Looks
another
like
thing.
Brandon's got his hand raised.
Oh yeah, Brandon, put your message in the chat. We're
Yeah.
and we'll definitely get to
We'll
you.
do that. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
there's
another
kind of
thing.
a,
That's
Yeah.
another thing with
Yeah.
patents is you get that head start on everybody else. You make your money early while it's not a commodity.
Yep. It's kind of a first to market strategy, isn't it?
yeah,
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah, absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely. So interesting. All right. Well, I've got another one here, and this is kind of an interesting one, I think. So why an independent Scotland could become the richest country on earth. And when I first saw this, I thought, okay, they're just kind of plugging Scotland for economic development or something. But I got to reading it, and it was really interesting. And and it's a prognostication kind of thing, but they make an interesting analogy here, because they're talking about the richest countries now, and the fact that they're really small. Saudi Arabia is 28, Russia's that's about the oil thing.
Yeah,
But they said,
makes sense.
but they were talking about
Oh,
these
here we
other
go.
ones. Here we are. Singapore and Norway have about 5 million. Qatar is about 3 million. But they're small.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luxembourg has about 500,000, but they're ranking really, really high. One of the things that they were correlating this with, he said, this is because there's a direct correlation between size of the state and the wealth of the people. The bigger the former, the smaller the latter. And more power is concentrated, the less wealth will spread.
Interesting.
But in a small nation forced to live in smaller tax base, there's a limit to how big state institutions can grow. Monitoring becomes more efficient. It's harder to obfuscate. Never can pronounce that right. More transparency, less waste, easier to implement, being flexible, dynamic, and competitive. Fewer people, less wealth. So I never really thought about it that way before. But
explains why Canada is so able to compete with the US.
yeah,
They've got like 1/10 our population, but it's a really weird fact. You look at the 48th parallel, I think it's called, the division between us and Canada. There's actually more Americans living above that line than Canadians living above that line.
really?
And it's because they're almost all almost around the kind of the Michigan area, that little dip. Like that's where most Canadians live. So it's kind of like Canada's a big country, but the population's super concentrated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder. Oh yeah, if you think about it, I always hear people going on trips to Canada,
Yeah.
and it's like if you go out of those populated areas, you're like
You're in
literally
yeah,
middle of
it's
nowhere.
you and a bear. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting. They said let's see, they want to it's already has a rich tradition of trade, finance, and banking. And with it just 5 million people, it's small.
I wonder, there needs to be an experiment to see if innovation is higher in more concentrated areas, because I bet it is.
That would be an interesting study to do.
Because you look at like the periodic table, it's like mostly 3 countries. It's mostly Germany,
Really?
UK, and Sweden. Like it's almost it. A
Really?
couple of Japan, some of the newer elements. It's weird.
So those were those new elements are
Yeah,
coming from, in
yeah.
other words. Wow.
Yeah, all really densely populated countries.
Oh.
Weird.
Small but mighty.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if this is a thing of the future or not. So yeah, I want. What do you guys think of innovation as a metric for human success? You think that innovation would drive it? Say an area, and this is kind of what we've been. We've had this Invent Appalachia initiative going for a little over a year now, because we believe that you can take an area like rural Appalachia, and if you could really inject some innovation in there, you could take things off. But could it be a metric for success?
I think it could be. One thing I think it's, I guess, spreading the base out of innovation is that everyone's more connected now than ever.
That's
So
true.
it's kind of like being in a densely populated place, because even if you're in a small town in southeastern Kentucky, you can be on a Zoom call with somebody in Lexington or somebody in New York and collaborate.
I like that.
I hadn't thought
The
about
most
that.
densely populated place on earth is the internet.
Right.
I love that. Huh.
Okay, we got to use that.
Yeah.
The most densely populated place on earth is the internet.
Well, great.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
I'll be trademarking that one, Jim.
Interesting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah. Well, that makes sense because, and you think they have in rural Appalachia, they've been on fire trying to get all of this fiber reaching,
yeah.
they say, that last mile. And I'm sure they're doing it in a lot of other rural places as well
Absolutely.
now. And if you could really utilize that and leverage that, I think the right person could really take off
Yeah,
with that.
I mean, that's how we've coached the kids mostly. I mean,
Yeah.
we did a few in person, but most of it was online.
Most of it was all on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because when we saw them all in person, it's like they immediately recognized us.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I know you guys,
That's a surreal thing that I've experienced a lot the past few years, is meeting somebody in person that I've known for years, but only online. It's so weird.
I know. It's, I almost wonder if somebody will coin a name for that.
There should be. I bet the Germans already have.
Oh, goodness. All right. And I think we've got one more here. Oh, yeah. This is the kind of this one's really, as Paul Harvey used to say, and now for a strange. So a shape-shifting robotic tooth cleaner might be one day brush for you. So it's made of billions of magnetic nanoparticles that form bristles or floss. So this is it's a shape-shifting tooth cleaning micro robot, or millions of robots, I guess. You can arrange them in any shape you want. Nanoparticles are very, very tiny metallic balls. Magnets make them move.
You literally have them in our mouth already and not know.
Not know it. And yeah, and it's let's see, there's a little more about it. Let's see, Michael Koo, an inventor and dental researcher. They found a way to form the nanoparticles into long, skinny bristles, a lot like the ones on a toothbrush. But these bristles can shape shift to fit whatever surface they encounter. They can even squeeze in between teeth like floss. Part of me likes that. Part of that creeps me out.
Very mixed feelings about it.
And I think about this episode of the science fiction show called Farscape.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on one of the early episodes, they've actually got him. He's lost his toothbrush, and he's in outer space, and he's like dealing with aliens or some, it's a science fiction trope. And this guy's trying to stick these little bugs in his mouth, and he says, "These will clean your teeth." And so I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know. Would I want little creepy crawly things?
So what's your take on that, Jim? Would you be an early adopter of that, or would you hold on to the Colgates?
I don't know if I'd be sticking that in my mouth.
Yeah, for
I'll
me,
wait till everybody else tries it and see what happens.
there you go.
Well, that's a good, you're not going to be an early adopter, right?
I love the concept of nanomachines for health and wellness, but what scares me is the idea of whoever owns them. Like, I don't want it to be on a plan. That'd be terrifying. You get a little update where it's like, your heart's working great right now, but 3 weeks overdue to pay. or something.
Keep that subscription up.
Right, yeah. Hey, keep that
Yeah, instead
subscription
of
going.
software as a service, it would be living as a service.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be a little scary. Well, and I've known some people that have been involved in some nano technology projects. And I know one guy I'm thinking of in particular now, and he backed out of it. He's like, yeah, this was really cool and it would really do all this amazing stuff. He said, but then what happens if they get away? It's like, he says, we can't track, you can track certain things, but it's like, what if it's almost like industrial waste.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a really, really cool book by Michael Crichton about this, called not The Swarm, something like that.
I know what you're talking about. I've read it.
Yeah, it was really good.
Escapes from the lab and
Yeah, it escapes from the lab, and and this was kind of like a real life story of it. He's like, this stuff scared us. We just backed off this whole project because of things that we didn't want to bring home, that we didn't know we were bringing home. And so I don't know. I think you'd have to find a good way to, I don't know, control it, filter it.
See if it can make more of itself, because at that point, then it's like, well, what's the difference between a nanomachine and a virus? Because that's kind of what a virus is. It's a little machine that replicates itself.
I think that book was called Prey.
Right. I've not read it.
Prey, like
Makes
predator,
sense.
predator,
Yeah.
prey.
Huh.
I think, but I don't know. Swarm sounds like more, because it was like they would move like bird,
Swarm of birds or insects.
Yeah, exactly.
described them going through the desert that way, and they thought they were birds, and then they got closer. And
Yeah,
Trippy.
if you've not read it, it's great.
Yeah, I'll check
It
it
is a
out.
great book.
it's great.
It is Prey. Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it's a really good book. So anyway, all right. Well, let's see. Let's move on to we've got an inventor we want to feature. I'm going to stop sharing that. And we've got with us tonight Bob Hawkinson. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. It's always a good day in Florida.
You wished I was there. Now you're up near the Jacksonville area?
Yeah, we're North Florida, which is more like South Georgia than the rest of Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I'd love to go down there sometime. We'll have to. I have to invent a reason to come see you, right?
There you go. I like it.
They have an empowered inventing road trip.
That's right.
Yeah.
Road trip.
I like that.
That would work for me. So cool. All right. Well, Bob is the inventor. He's the CEO of it's Recede Plastics. Is that your CEO?
So our holding company for all our intellectual property we call Green IP.
Oh, okay.
Recede
Cool name.
Bioplastics is a brand. Thanks. Recede Bioplastics is a brand.
Great, cool. So Bob, tell us just kind of in a nutshell what your product, what your innovation is.
So
Yeah, that's the tough thing to do, is condense it. Yeah, we're investing.
I've got
I
have
Shark
quite a-
Tank pitch, right?
You gotta get that
It was that
elevator.
easy, right? I have quite a few patents, and the hard part about this is everything I'm doing is really disruptive. So I'm not just trying to disrupt one little industry. I got about 6 or 7 I'm going after, and it's really it's pretty staggering the size of each of the marketplaces. But so way back, I got a patent on using a mulch bag as a weed barrier and as a biodegradable material. So the bag opens out flat, you spread the mulch over the bag, leave it, and then it blocks weeds, gets rid of plastic bags, and then makes weeds go away, right? So you don't use Roundup, or you don't have to have herbicides. So
Fantastic.
Nice.
yeah, I couldn't find a plastic, right? There was nothing. So I tested everything, and it just wouldn't, nothing worked. So kind of crazy, but after a prayer, I wound up with a guy who's probably the top plastics guy in the world. 20 minutes later. It's kind of crazy, but we've been working together about a decade now. And
Nice.
yeah, we ultimately came up with a material that is really, really strong, very ductile, meaning stretchy. You can't put your finger through it when we're stronger than polyethylene, which is kind of bizarre for a biodegradable. Yeah. So we're tested ASTM, soil and marine biodegradable, and BPA free, PFAS free, phthalate free, have soil non-toxicity, could do food contact. So we're kind of we're a material that can be used in a lot of areas. And I didn't want to make a plastic. That was not my goal. I'm like kicking and screaming having to do this. I didn't want to do it. But it didn't exist. So was forced to do it. And but we've leveraged it now. We're 2 weeks, we're going up to Pennsylvania, and we're going to go see an extruder company that for extruding line trimmer string, weed eater string, and then 3D printer filament. We can do 3D printer filament. We can do
That's a
agriculture.
game changer right there, because then you've got other people innovating with your innovation in ways that you probably hadn't foreseen yet.
Right.
So that could really pick up some steam.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, please continue. I just had to
Jump in anytime. You're fine. Seriously, the idea is that we can basically take a material. If it ends up in soil or it ends up in water, we're a good choice. If you're going to go throw it in the landfill, just buy a cheap plastic. You know what I mean? There's no gain. And then we're doing things. We can do agricultural film. From what we can estimate, the size of the state of Ohio is put down in plastic every year across the United States. So with ours, you just till it in at the end. You don't have to roll it up and landfill it. And when they do that, one of the problems they're having is lots of microplastics coming off that material. And so you do that 10, 20, 30 years, you got soil contamination. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So we're a solution for that. We've filed on irrigation flags, utility flags, like you see along the highway. You'll see 500 of them. A lot of those don't get picked up. They wind up in the ditches and the waterways.
Yeah.
So with ours, you could just mow them over, and they're going to biodegrade.
So
Pots, landscape pots. There's a lot of plastic landscape pots out there, and they're hard to recycle. So they don't do a real good job at it because it's difficult to do. So we take the pot and we here, let me show you. Let me go get it real quick. Hang on a sec.
Cool. We get to see one.
Yeah. So the idea is, there's tons of these little pots everywhere, and they get thrown away, and it's just staggering the amount of plastic that happens. So what we did is we figured out we put perfs on the sides, perforations. And so what our pot will do is it'll fold flat. Right. And so we can put humus and beneficial microbes in there. And so it also forces you to dig a hole twice the size of the root ball, which is what all the universities and all the growers tell you to do.
And yeah.
Yeah. So get rid of plastic pots. There's it's just everything, like I say, it's just big. So we're working diligently right now. I think the low hanging fruit is the string trimmer line and the filament. And then the mulch.
How long did it take you to come up with that final product?
We just got the patent a couple of weeks ago. But we've been working on it for 9 years, probably. Yeah, it's been a lot of hit and miss and trial and error. And we had five rejections, which is unusual. You normally don't get that many. And then we got to the end. You guys were talking about this the other day. We got to the end, and my chemist was at this level. The reviewer was at this level.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, and he would just he just blew the guy out of the water. But we got to the end and he denied it. And so we said, okay, well, we want to extend and we'd like to interview with your boss. Next thing we know, boom, the patent issued. So worked out kind of well. The guy that's my chemist, he actually happens to be a patent agent also.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, how crazy is that, right?
Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, works out. So anytime I file a patent or whatever, I send it all to him. He double checks, and then the lawyer will put the info together, and he'll come back and tweak it and all that sort of stuff. So what we figured out how to do, like I say, is make a really strong bioplastic, biodegradable, and then we went way wide with our abilities to protect it. And so the patent agent kept, or the patent reviewer kept trying to narrow it down. We kept trying to go wide. We ultimately ended pretty wide, and we filed a continuation in part because we'll keep adding to it. So
Well, I got a personal request. One thing that scares me half to death in terms of microplastics is because of animal feed bags. So if you guys could do something about that, because what happens is farmers, they'll just throw the bag to the pig. Pigs eat the plastic. People eat the pork. People have microplastics in their system. If there was a solution to that, I would be very grateful. I want to eat pork chops without being terrified that I'm gonna grow beef cups.
but you know, that's interesting, because what happens with microplastics, they become microplastics because the material disintegrates, right?
Yeah.
But that's only one step of biodegradation. You first the material has to disintegrate, and then it continues to break down, gets eaten by microbes, and then it off gases CO2 and H2O. I sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm a landscaper, right? But it gave me an advantage. There's a couple things I think I've had advantage in life. I've been diabetic since I was just under a year old. So it's forced me to be pragmatic, right? I know that this begets this, begets this, begets this, and that's all day, every day. So it forces me to, it's built a way of thinking my whole life that I think has served me well in the IP side. So spent a lot of time and money and effort getting the material right, getting application uses. So then now it's get to market. So we were shut down for COVID for 2 years because what we're doing is we're going into plants and getting time, and then they didn't want to let anybody in, so we couldn't get in. But now we're about to go blow film, and we're gonna start. I'll just start filling the mulch bags myself and selling them. I have a really busy corner, and I'll just start proving it myself, and I think that'll be a way to get the notice of the big boys. So
Good deal.
Yeah.
we also do another bag that's we call it a color pocket. It's a plant through bag. So you dump part of the material out, and then you lay the bag down, it folds out, spread the rest of the soil over it, and you plant right through the bag, and it'll hold moisture, block weeds, and for like backyard gardens. We filed a patent on grocery bags. So one of the advantages is if you own the material, nobody else can do this with my material, right? So so that is a big advantage. And a lot of the bioplastics they're just inferior products, if that makes sense. I don't know how to describe it, but they just don't do really well. So we've taken what we do with the grocery bag is we can make it out of my material, and then we put perfs in the side. So the bag folds flat. So if you went to Home Depot and bought a tomato, you could go to your house and go to your garden, pull the mulch back, whatever, fold the bag out flat, plant the tomato through it. So we get rid of the grocery bags. Just that kind of stuff, every application we look at it and go, what makes sense? We're pretty confident in our material. We can do a fishing line. We're not sure we might be able to foam it for like floats. So, as I say, it's just, there's so much stuff. It's just
right. You don't know what direction.
I'm going to revenue. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
It sounds like you found some good beachhead markets to start with, though. So that's
yeah, absolutely. And and what's really happened for me has been an advantage because the world's throwing rocks at plastic. Just like Leo said, small plastic all this, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that share that belief.
Yep.
So for me, it's been good because our timing was good finally.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Absolutely. Well, Bob, what was the hardest part for you with all this? What was the hardest part of the whole process?
So I'm a really big picture kind of guy.
Yeah.
And take really big picture and move it down to execution is really hard. And then getting people to understand how it's a better product for them and that their consumer will like it better and those sort of things. So
Mhm.
I did just find out our material's been really expensive, and we just found out we can get our material for about a third less than what we've been paying. So
Ooh,
that's going to put me out in the market space a whole lot better and easier. So
that's fantastic news.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're doing 3 materials now. That one of the problems that's hard is because all the plastics do different things. So, you know, there's injection molding, they'll do that on this kind of stuff, or blow molding. And so you have to build a different blend to do that. To do the bags or the weed eater line, that kind of stuff, it's a little bit different blend. To do different products or different blends. So we're about to do 3 different blends. It's been hard to get into people's facilities. That's what's hard. You know, if I had $5 million, I could go light the world, or $3 million, I could go light the world on fire.
Yeah.
So I have all the equipment to could go make it happen. But
Sure.
so it's a little difficult to get in. Thank God
Right.
my chemist knows everybody in the industry, and he gets us in. So
Excellent.
Cool. Cool. What do you think what helped you the most through the process? What was the best outside resource for you? You think?
you may find it weird, but I think prayer.
Yep. I
Um,
agree.
because
Totally.
because I get to a point, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I can't believe, and send me the right guy and let me be smart enough to have discernment to know who to recognize it, you know,
Yeah.
or put me the right people in my life, or help me find the right people, or
Yep.
give me clarity. You know what I mean? So I believe that a lot of good things have happened after I pray. But it's I would say that's a big, because this is a lonely profession.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It's really difficult, and you got your vision. So trying to get people to share your vision is sometimes hard. So what I just do is I figured out, I know what my vision is. I'm just going to go build it, and then and make it happen. But I'd say probably I've had a lot of friends who've been real supportive. That you know, keep you going and keep encouraging and that sort of thing. So
Well, a lot of people would have given up after, taking 9 years to get where you got.
Yeah.
So how do you explain the perseverance? Because most people don't have that, but if they stuck to it, they could eventually get where they're going.
So, you know, Stephen Key always says, you know, big ideas take a long time. All right. So I always listen, you know, Stephen's been a big help to me too. Stephen's a great guy. He's a good guy. He's been, and I know a couple other people so I run an inventors group in my town. We haven't done much this year, but
Sure.
Thursday we're going to have at my new work shed where I've got my 3D printer. I've got 10 or 12 people coming.
Oh, cool.
We're going to go hang out and try and demystify 3D printing.
Excellent.
So yeah, that'll be fun.
Fantastic.
But you know, I was running 12 meetings a year by myself for about 7 years, and I get to a point I couldn't pull any more rabbits out of the hat, you know. So, and then I had to focus and get this to market and get it done. So I'm just moving ahead. I ain't not messing around. But I think perseverance. So I would call it tenacity. Dude, I just don't take no for an answer. I find a way around. I find a way over. I find a way below. Don't care. Where am I going? I'm going to get there. Right.
Well, I think that's the right track, because most of the successful inventors and entrepreneurs that I've seen and I've worked with have, if there is one common thread with all of those people, I think it's that there's always one more move. there's always something.
Yeah.
There's all there, you know, it's not like game over. It's like, okay, what do I need to do next? And it's that perseverance. Right.
Yeah.
That carries through.
That makes
So
sense.
cool. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm excited about your markets and you've got a cost that's lowered on one of your major components. That's an exciting win.
Gosh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. I've felt that before. Both directions.
Well, and it's, you know, and there's also the other thing that's difficult is there's so much black magic out there in the plastics industry.
Yep.
And people don't know what they're talking about. You know, a lot of people attack me on LinkedIn and I'm like, I have no idea what you're even saying. That's what you just said is completely wrong. You know what I mean? Or they'll say, oh, you're greenwashing. What? What are you talking about? Right? Or like California. California says you can't use the word biodegradable.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry, that's a process. That's how
Yeah, right.
like you can say compostable. Well, compostable is biodegradable. You're biodegradable in the industrial compostable.
Semantics, right?
Yeah. So it's, you know, there's
goodness.
there's so much
Right.
there's so much wrong knowledge.
All right. Well, let's give everybody, let's give Bob a hand.
Oh, I
Great
appreciate
job.
it.
Keep up the good work. Keep us posted. And
Absolutely.
we're just really excited that
I
for
appreciate
what you're doing. And we can't wait to see what's around the corner for you.
I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
All righty.
Appreciate your
Good
time.
deal. Good deal. All right. Well, let's see. I think next we've got some questions from the chat.
Yep,
I'll bet, Leo, I'll bet you have been perusing some of that.
I have. And most of it has been trivia, which has been fun, by the way, but not a lot in the way of questioning. And unfortunately, Dan and actually, yeah, who else did drop off? Let me see. I'm trying to figure out who's not here. Two people had to drop off, unfortunately, and I know they both had questions.
Oh,
So Q&A might be a little short. If anybody has any questions,
yep.
feel free to either put it in the chat or raise your hand or something.
Yep.
Yeah, Don, I'll say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so talking about where I think there's a lot of wasted plastic is in these plastic net they cover these big round hay bales with.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Cows, that's another one. I know people too lazy to cut them off the hail. And what happens? The cows eat some of the plastic.
Yeah.
And you eat a
Well,
steak.
every one of those hay bales that I removed the net off, it's a big, huge bundle.
Huge,
I mean,
yeah.
very big, huge bundle, you know, I mean, and that's just one bale.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's nothing even, that's the mesh too. Some people, I don't know if about it's drier in your neck of the woods, but some people will bale their hay with that big, thick white plastic where they look like marshmallows in the middle of a field. And, those have always scared me anyway, because if you cut it too green, they'll burn and they'll basically explode in those plastic wraps.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean that's a great point though, George.
Like a compost bomb, or
ostensibly, yeah, the bacteria eat the sugar and it gets hot and they just boom. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like one thing you said also too, you know, those cows will, if you don't get to it in time, they'll start eating they'll eat the net in order to get to the hay.
Wow.
And then that's not good for them.
No, or us.
So yeah, I think they put the netting on the silage because it's wetter and they put the plastic on the dried stuff, I think. Is that how it works?
No, it's either or. Like most people, when they round bale hay, they'll use a plastic netting to give it structure. But some people, if they cut it and they want it really top of the line, it's usually horse farmers. They want it to taste like it was cut yesterday. They'll put that plastic opaque stuff so there's no UV light or oxidation or anything like that.
So we were looking at that the last couple of years because we've gone to the Moultrie, Georgia has an ag show that's really cool if you guys have never been there. And those guys are always out there baling all that stuff and they're for sure using a ton of plastic. Now the only way that would work is if you took our stuff and you buried it. Right. So and then it's gonna break down. It's either gonna have to wind up in soil or water.
I see.
Yeah. So if they're
Good
gonna
compost it as far as that goes, yeah.
you could, you could compost it or you could yeah, bury it, yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, they use a lot of plastic. You're absolutely right, George.
Jesse's got a question for Jim. Let's see. Intro explanation about the new Unity patent program in European countries.
Oh, we're still waiting to see how that plays out. They've been promising a Unity patent for 15 years or more. They already had a process in place where you could file with the European Patent Office and then just international phase without any further examination. So, the Unity patent just kind of shortcuts the process a little bit, but I don't think you're ever going to get to the point that every little country doesn't have their, eyes on what kind of fees you're going to pay and keep up with your annuities. But, they already get examined once at the EPO. So we kind of already had the Unity patent system. It was just very expensive, but yeah, I think I did a lot of work for Valvoline in Europe on patents, and it can cost you, $30,000, $40,000 just to take an existing patent and get it in place in every nation in Europe. Just ridiculously expensive. So you have to kind of pick and choose.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Plus, I'm wondering almost, is it worth it for an independent inventor to even go after patents outside the US? Let's say you're in the US, you're an independent inventor, you're working on a budget. Is it really, really worth the?
You know what any lawyer is going to tell you.
It depends, right?
You have to look at the market. You have to take a look at the product. There are markets where the patent for a certain product makes sense. There are markets where you're crazy if you file a patent.
Yeah.
But it depends on import, export. It depends on what kind of industry they would have in that country to utilize it. So it varies by product, it varies by country. But what I've seen for the most part is if you, let's say with like a chemical or a plastics patent, if you get a patent in the US, you're probably crazy if you don't get the patent in Germany. Because the Germans will reproduce it and ship it everywhere that you're wanting to go and don't have patents.
Makes sense.
So you figure out where your competition is going to come from and kind of cut them off at the knees a little bit.
So it's not really so much where the market is sometimes as maybe the competition would be.
Right.
As far as
in the automotive industry, the big car makers in Europe target countries with the most production facilities.
So we just ran into something the other day where our provisional was timing out on our weed eater string, and he said, "Well, do you want to file this in other countries?" And it's a freaking fortune. And we made a decision not to because I own the material in those other countries, so nobody can use my stuff over there anyway for that. So, it depends on what your sort of your strategic plays are. But
Interesting.
yeah, sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't.
I found a lot of inventors have found it useful to actually get Chinese patents now.
I've heard of that.
It's at the point where China's in the WTO now, World Trade Organization. They have to play a little more fair. They're never going to play completely fair. But the trick in China is you need to get a partner on the ground who's Chinese and has ties to the government, form a joint venture, and they will watch your back.
You need a big brother over there.
You need to sometimes produce that product in China under that Chinese patent. And if they have connections, the government will protect them.
Interesting.
It's an interesting,
Hmm.
yeah. I wouldn't have expected that strategy, but it may, now that you say it, it makes perfect sense.
And
Yeah.
you hate to share the money just
Right?
because you need somebody to watch your back. It's kind of like the mafia.
Right, yeah, it kind of reminded me of that a little.
But it's too big a market to ignore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true. Very true.
Um,
Interesting.
Jesse had a follow-up to that, but I don't fully understand it, so I'm just gonna say unmute Jesse and ask that verbally, because I'm not cognizant of what that means. The suggestion was that it could potentially cut costs to about 1/3, but not necessarily court costs if necessary. I don't understand.
I wonder if it's patent cost versus,
Court costs?
yeah, cost if you had litigation.
Uh,
I wonder if that's what he might have meant. Jesse, if you can clarify either in the chat or however, we'll get a little clarification. We can answer that a little bit.
That was the suggestion from the European dot people, that it would cut the way it's being promoted. It would cut your initial cost up to 1/3 of what it previously was, and include a lot more countries. And further, the suggestion was that there's more countries joining that unity umbrella as time went on. So that's just the suggestion. That's the way.
I see.
Oh, I see.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
The advantage is if they're in the unity convention, then you don't have to have the same patent re-examined over and over. You file it once, they all have kind of a unified vision of what that patent looks like and what has to be in it. And Europe now has, for the most part, a unified patent court. So you have the advantage of knowing pretty well how your patent's going to stand up in different jurisdictions. So we're unlike here in the US. US patent law is vastly different from Chinese patent law.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
But in Europe, that unitization they already had in the litigation side made it much easier to defend the patents and go after infringers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, it all comes down to strategy in the end, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yep.
Hey,
And specific product and that sort of thing.
can I touch on?
It starts June, and it's the new big thing that they're promoting in Europe. So, I just caught wind of a few articles on it. That's why I would ask you.
Sure.
Just generally, that's why I said just a nutshell, observation
Yeah.
on.
Each country's still going to make their money on the fees you're going to pay to register it in their official registry. Kind of like the same way they do with trademarks. I mean, you can get a trademark here in the US, and if you're going to sell it overseas, you can go into the Madrid Protocol of the Madrid Treaty, and it's recognized in those jurisdictions. They're not necessarily going to re-examine it, but you're going to pay some steep fees.
Pay to play.
Pay to play.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
So
There's no change. It's what it is. So much if that's the way I'm taking what you're saying. I mean, it's still extremely expensive.
It's still expensive, but you cut back on the translation costs because they've centered on English, French, and German as the languages they want the patents to be filed in.
Makes sense.
so-
Spain's mad about that, but yeah.
oh. Well, that reminds me of something. The
Oh, sorry. Oh, well, no. We'll get to you in a second.
we'll get to you a second, Bob. States, I remember at least right here in the state of Kentucky, you could file a state trademark. Is that still a thing?
It's still a thing, and it's handy because you can get that state trademark issued much faster.
Oh,
So while you're waiting on the
Means you don't have to sell it across state lines, I'm guessing.
well, you can get, if you have a state trademark in Kentucky, you can have a state trademark in Ohio.
Trippy.
oh,
So you can have, state level registration early on
Sure.
and you get the same kind of damages, the same kind of rights that you do with federal registration. But every state does it a little different. So I've seen trademarks go through Kentucky that you're just scratching your head going, how did this happen?
One of the things you had to do to get a trademark was sell something under the trademark across state lines.
For the federal mark.
Okay, right. Okay, so
Um,
state doesn't have that same.
And it doesn't have to be sold, it just has to be offered for sale.
Oh, okay. Okay, good deal. I'm glad to know that because I thought, okay, excellent.
So, I was going to ask something about this. The state trademark has a value. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you about. I remember there was a burger chain here in Kentucky.
Dairy
and
Cheer.
That was it. I actually had a really good hamburger. I think it said home of the smash burger.
I grew up with a Dairy Cheer just down the street.
Oh, wow.
A friend of my dad's actually bought the franchise, the entire business at some point.
Wow.
But yeah, they had a huge falling out over the smash burger name, and
Yeah.
Dairy Cheer used it longer,
Hmm.
but can't find a Dairy Cheer outside of Kentucky.
Right.
Makes sense.
But there was a little bit of a battle with some Kentucky law firms and these two going at it.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, the Dairy Cheer side just kind of gave up. I think they could have won, but they kind of gave up.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
But
Interesting. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. There's one near where my wife lives, where my wife's from. So,
Well, go for it, Bob.
yeah.
Was,
Yeah, Bob. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so you'd asked a question about how to stick with it and what you do that. So if you look on my stuff in the background here, I have the little elephant over there and it says 1 bite at a time. It's just, you just take it down to small pieces and go. And then the other one is, if you're not doing what you love, you're wasting your time.
There you go.
I love this. That's one reason.
Yeah.
I think we all do. And that's,
Absolutely.
you got to be all in and you got to be committed and you plow through, but it's just little tiny pieces at a time and it all adds up to a whole elephant.
I find that characteristic missing in a lot of younger inventors these days.
Yeah.
Younger entrepreneurs are used to instant gratification, instant success, and one failure and it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. We've seen that before too.
Yeah.
if you take the viewpoint that you can learn from every failure,
Hmm.
I mean, there's no such thing as a true failure. You've learned something out of it.
Right. Yeah.
And
You
that's
apply that
that's
to the
one of the
next
tough
step.
lessons to teach people is
Yeah.
it's my favorite thing about being around entrepreneurs even is they treat failure as a learning opportunity instead of the end all be all to their whatever their goal happened to be. Oh, I see Jesse's got his hand raised. Go for it, Jesse. You are muted. 10 seconds.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I was muted,
Whoa.
unexpected.
You're cutting a little out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somehow I got muted.
Okay, but what
But
was
can you hear me now then?
Yeah, what was the question?
Okay, the question was out of left field for Jim. It's a way out left field extreme example of a question about the public disclosure, in that if some bizarre inventor had a flying device that was small, a flying device, and a man actually, or a woman for that matter, demonstrated it, and it had no propellers, no jet streams or rockets or anything. It could, like a Jetsons flying car.
Sure.
And he hadn't patented it yet, but he was going to. He was still working on it because it kind of bounced around, but
See where you're going
he
with
showed
this.
when it bounced around, it went up and around and it came down, and he's still working on it, finishing
And
it.
people saw it. Yeah.
Shown on the inside of how it works. How does that
Yeah.
apply to public exposure?
I see what you're saying.
uh,
Yeah.
The patent office understands that there are some inventions that have to be tested or worked on or prototyped out in the open. They're not totally oblivious to that, but it's a very, very difficult standard to meet.
Interesting.
I remember in law school, we had a case, one of the first patent cases was about public disclosure. And it was a man that invented a new type of corset for his wife.
I knew
And
what.
Corset.
Corset. So she puts it on under her dress and puts her dress on, goes out in public and walks around. And the patent office held that to be a public disclosure because
That's
it
bananas.
wasn't necessary to test it in public,
Wow.
even though you couldn't see it.
Yeah. Couldn't
That's
see it.
bananas. Well, okay. Let's say hypothetically, I got a cuticle remover, and I want to test how well it works on different people. It works great on me, but by the way, I don't have one. This is not- let's say I tested it on, I don't know, 5 people, and no money changed hands. It was just to see if it worked as well on them. They signed NDAs. Would that be disclosure?
If they sign the NDAs that they understand is confidential, it's just product testing.
Okay.
But here's the kicker: is
Whoa.
that there's always a but.
Yeah.
Always.
If one of those 5 people disclose it, that's a public disclosure. And you don't realize that public disclosures happened.
Right. Oh, that's terrifying.
So that
Yeah.
12-month clock started running before you even knew it did.
Right. It started
Oh.
when Sally remarked to Kelly that her cuticle was gone. That's bananas. Oof, I don't like that.
Yeah. That's a little scary.
It's common for in patent cases involving smaller inventors to oppose neighbors.
Oh.
Because if you told your neighbor about it, the patent might be invalid.
Right.
Wow.
Oof, that is rough. Interesting.
Goodness. Yeah. That's yeah, well, you shouldn't be paranoid over
Yeah.
that, but
But I
you
am.
should be careful.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
I think we got time for.
Celeste had a comment. Was that?
Yeah. Thank you. In connection with various things, no need.
There's no need to make the same mistake twice, but there's plenty of new ones available.
like that. Good deal.
Well, on that note, there's and this comes up with tenacity and what just what Jim was saying about you were saying about a lot of younger inventors, they want that immediate gratification and they can't take the failure. And that all that boils down, and this is kind of the crux of a lot of what we teach and a lot of what we work with inventors, and that's behaviors. We find that behaviors sometimes, the nuts and bolts stuff's good to know. You need to know, you have a good patent strategy. You need to know about marketing. You need to know about business. You need to know all these other pieces. But if you don't have the behavior right, you can do all the nuts and bolts stuff and it can all be you throw it all down the tube. So yeah, I think behaviors sometimes really does make a huge difference.
It does. I've even seen inventors that came up with great products, but they were, totally unwilling to turn it loose and file a patent.
Yeah,
It was their baby,
right.
Oh yeah.
and
They were
they
afraid.
weren't
see
ready
that.
because the baby wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand that at some point somebody else is going to come up with the baby.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's like when we showed the Apple One. Imagine if Steve Jobs and Wozniak had looked at that and said, "No, we want it to be something more like an iMac." like, in like 78 or whatever. It's not gonna happen. I think we got time for one more question. Let's see. Jesse, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's a backup to that same question in that there's a diametrically opposed dilemma between all of the inventor gurus out there, including like the YC group, but those are mainly for online type of things, but physical products as well,
Sure.
is to get it out there. Don't worry about, iterations, get it out there because you got to test it with people to improve your product. And you need to improve your product to file your patent, and you need to test it. I mean, can you help out in answering that question in general? They're diametrically opposed between testing and a public disclosure.
Gotcha.
Not everybody, in fact, most people don't have patents on the final commercial product. They have a patent on the concept. They have a patent on what they believe to be the preferred embodiment at that time. There may be a lot of stuff added to it later, some of which doesn't add to patentability, some of which might. But yeah, you gotta pull that trigger sometime to start the patent process. And like Bob mentioned earlier, file a CIP, a continuation in part, if you have new matter to add on top of it.
Right.
And you still get the priority date from the earlier application, so you don't lose that. But if you don't protect what you start with, you might wind up with an improved invention you can't do anything with.
Yeah.
That makes exactly.
That brings me back to always there's a suggestion of, well, file a PPA first, then you got a year. But I'll give you an example, a specific example to myself. I've been working on a particular device for over 3 years, and the concept hasn't changed. But if I had shown it to people, and you can renew, file another PPA.
Yeah, serial filing.
Well, and they exposed it, then you're back out to the same thing. You're exposing, you're disclosing it to the public. I mean, it's, in other words, 3 years ago, I had the concept, but now I'm getting real close to bringing out the product. I had to go through a lot of, iterations and refinements and just a gazillion things with it.
Should book an appointment with Jim.
Yeah.
What you got to look at is whether or not the disclosure enables somebody to practice the invention. So sometimes what you do is
with the word enable
pieces of it
in the law. Yes.
You don't have to disclose, the complete flying car. You can disclose perhaps some features. You could maybe disclose part of the engine or how it works. And that part's a public disclosure. But if you have had pieces that weren't publicly disclosed, as long as those are in that independent claim, you can still be protected by a patent. It's just the parts that were already out there, you can't protect. Well, supposedly you can't protect them. A lot of people kind of pull a fast one on the patent office and try to protect things they know they can't.
Sure.
So one of the things I had a buddy used to always say is, and I think you're kind of pinging along that, is there comes a time to shoot the engineer and start production. At some point, you got to make a decision, am I going for it or not? And, if you just
called paralysis by analysis.
Yeah. It's, oh yeah, and it just,
It's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
No.
It's never going to be complete, but
It's one of the reasons I don't do ghostwriting anymore. Is I see that a lot in ghostwriting circles, where it's like, I need your help writing a book, and then 5 years later, it's like, well, chapter 140 is going to be about this.
Oh, gosh. Bob, does that apply if you want to shoot your engineer?
Depends on how long you've been doing it, right?
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely experienced that. So, all right.
That's-
Well, with
it's never
that,
good enough.
yep. Well, with that, I think we're about done. All right.
Just heads up, everybody. We got, I'm gonna do the wrap.
Yeah, yeah. Go for it.
Didn't
Go
even
for it.
plan on that, but next open meeting, May 2nd, we've got Edward Ayers, good friend of the network, and he's gonna be talking about the 3 Ps of failure. After that, we've got the workshop, and after that, we've got another Inventor Friday.
That's
So
right.
stay tuned for May.
All right. All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Jim, we really enjoyed having you. We'd love to have you back sometime. And everybody, thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday night. And we will see you all in May.
Everyone,
Thank you all
All
for
right.
what you do.
Thanks so much.
thank you.
Good night.